Listeners, I mean, this is going to be a bit different conversation because today, the topic itself, I think it is something that every leader carries, but almost nobody talks about. I mean, think about it. What if the reason that your team is feeling disconnected, your decisions, they start to feel reactive, or your leadership, it feels heavier than it should? All of these are not strategy problems. What if it's a nervous system problem? It's wild, but it's quite interesting to think from this perspective, listeners. And today we are actually talking about this and also how that invisibly shapes the culture, the conversations, and the people around you. And it's not just in the workplaces, but in our personal lives as well. So stick with us because this is going to be a really, really interesting conversation. So, yes, welcome back, dear listeners, to Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. As all of you know, this is a space where we have the real conversations, the ones that help you understand yourself a little better so you can live and lead a little more honestly. And I'm Sana, your host. Our listeners, my guest today. Well, she's an international speaker. She's founder of BrainShift. She's a leadership coach, certified in brain based coaching, and also she's an author on leadership and mental health. She helps leaders understand what pressure does to the nervous system and how that quietly shapes everything: culture, decisions, relationships, and also the kind of leader you become under stress. So, this conversation is for anyone who leads people, whether it's at work, at home, or anywhere in between. Let's get into it and let's welcome our guest, Hanna Kurman. Hanna, welcome to the show, and it's really an honor having you here with us.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm really looking forward to have this dialogue together with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Me too. Because let me tell all the listeners, as I mentioned in the intro, this is not just only for at work or leaders in your workplaces, but it's at home, and I think it's for us as well, because I believe, Hannah and listeners, that before leading people we should know, yeah, in I mean in a good way, how we can lead ourselves. Because honestly, stress, that unpredictability of life, it is not avoidable. You cannot avoid unpredictability and challenges in your life, but you can at least learn how to face them better. That's what I believe, and I think that's an innate part of the leadership.
Hmm. I can only agree with you. I mean, challenges. There are all different kind of challenges all around us, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it is. So, Hannah, before we get into the science, the biology, the leadership side of all this, it's it's kind of a personal curiosity. I mean, you have had quite a non-linear path. I think that's an interesting way. But what do you think? Like, for you, was it any particular moment or a season, a phase, where you had this realization, or this y- you know green signal that now it's the time, that your own nervous system, it had been trying to tell you something maybe you weren't listening to?
Mhm. And there is actually one specific situation that I would like to bring to you, and that is 20 years ago. I mean, it's 2 decades since, and I was then in a situation at work where I had a position that was just the perfect match for me. I was traveling around the world. I was meeting people from all around the globe, and I really did have a possibility to make influence and really getting my word heard. And I just loved what I was doing. But there was one thing that kind of was yeah, it got stuck in me, and I wanted to do even more. And I had this brilliant idea. So I wanted to present this idea to my manager, and I was preparing for this meeting. I took days, evenings, weekends to really prepare for this meeting. And then eventually we were there, and I was entering the room, so excited to have this conversation with him. And when it was time for me on the agenda, my manager simply stood up and said that, "I'm sorry, but I don't have any more time."
Oh, okay.
There again, I mean, my whole body was like shaking, starting to shake, and I was fumbling, and I was just rushing out in my car, and there I was sitting behind the steering wheel, and just shaking, and my tears were flooding down
Mm,
cheeks.
mm,
And that was a starting point for me being home for 6 months. And of course, it was not only this specific meeting. It was a lot of circumstances that was before this. But what happened there and then was that I started to study what was it that really happened with me during that meeting at that moment with me and the other ones in that room. And yeah, and the insights that I got from that, I also did study a lot of research. I was reading a lot of research. I was doing a lot of interviews with people in the same situation, and all those things pointed at the same direction. So I wrote a book
mm,
that is called the connection between leadership and mental health. That was also when I really started to shift the way that I was leading myself,
mm,
and by that also leading others.
mm. And Hannah, yeah, I have so many thoughts in my mind. But one thing I must say, I mean, it's kind of a compliment, but you actually helped me visualize that situation in my mind so beautifully. I mean, it's kind of, I feel it's not beautiful at all, but then I'm very sure many of our listeners, they must have, gone through. It's not that, any manager, their manager, their superior told the exact thing, but maybe it came from a person that they believed, they could trust or go to, you know. It's either your workplace or your home, and you get to know, I don't have time for this anymore.
Mm.
It's like this shocking realization. And I also believe, Hannah, that in this, we kind of, I mean, yeah, it's not about overthinking, but still, I mean, let's say if our body is screaming to us and we are not able to give that time, or maybe our inner self is screaming out loud, listen to me. And we are saying, I don't have time for you. I don't have time to listen to you. I mean,
Mm.
it how, we as a human, we feel when someone says that back to us.
Mm.
And I think that's the kind of thought it kind of, it came in my mind when I heard those words from you and the entire situation in there.
Yeah, yeah, really, and I mean, I would dare to say that more or less all of us has been in a similar situation, even though it might have not been together with a manager or so on. But we have all felt neglected
Mm,
or rejected. And the feeling of rejection and neglection is actually directly connected to our nervous system and our survival.
mm,
We know by fact that our brain is wired to keep us alive, and the easiest way to keep us alive is to stay out of threat. We know that. And one of the most threatening thing that we can be facing is to be rejected and neglected. What really happened to me back there 20 years ago, and when I was rushing out of my car, was that I felt neglection and rejection. I was not I was not worthy.
Mm.
And if I would have known myself, if I would have been more aware of my own signals and the way that we are responding to that kind of situations,
Mm.
I would have been able to regulate myself in a way that, of course, I would have felt rejected and neglected, but it would not have had that huge impact on me.
6 months you were in your home. You.
Yeah. I was home for a sick leave for 6 months on 100%. So I did not spend any hour at all at the office for 6 months. And then I gradually started to come back. And I think it took more or less a year for me to be fully back again.
Mhm.
Uh, and this is something that too many people are facing. Yeah.
And Hannah, because you started exploring this deep down, you went into the research, you took interviews. So I
Mm.
think that gives a very unique lens to understand this, the root cause in there. And something which I also keep noticing, and this is more, on the leadership, strong leadership, of discussion, that we almost always describe someone who stays always calm under pressure, who keeps going no matter what. You are resilient, you have that grit, you are always solid. But then, do you believe that that is actually strength, or i- could that story of staying calm sometimes be a way your nervous system, is trying to just protect itself, protect you,
Mm.
kind of survival mode that we have just learned to call composure?
Yeah, yeah. I think that is a really, really interesting question, and I do believe that there are two answers to that. One answer that I wish that I could say is the most common one is that we have the break, that we are there on the edge all the time, and we are in a thrive situation, meaning that we really, really know why we are doing things, and it's something that we are are looking forward to, and we feel that we are part of something greater and good. Then that would be a benefit for ourselves and our own health. But unfortunately, my answer is that too often, and I don't have the figure here, but I know some figures that are pointing at 80, maybe up to 90% of all the time, when we are in this grit mode, that we are in a constant move, that we are in constant performance and so on, that is based on survival,
Hmm.
and we are in survival mode. And that is actually something that will impact our health, not only the mental health,
Hmm.
but also the body health,
Right.
the physical health in a very, very high extent. So the first thing that we need to do is to ask ourselves, am I in thrive or survive mode?
That's a huge question. That's
Mm.
that's a big question, Helen. It's a big.
Mm. And I do believe that that's the quick answer would probably be for everyone that no, I'm in a thrive. But then when you start to dig into it a little bit, then you realize that you are not. And one of the questions I usually ask 3 questions, and the first one is that, when did you feel shame and guilt the last time? And then I also ask, when did you feel that you had time pressure? And then I also ask, when did you do something because you thought someone else was expecting you to do it?
Mm.
And if you say, yes, I did this, I felt this during the past week, then you are more or less as in everybody else. But I do question why. Why do you feel guilt? Why do you feel shame? How come you are in time pressure? And what was it that made you do things because you thought that someone else was expecting it? And those are the things that, when we understand the biological drivers behind our way of acting and reacting, then we can also turn those into positive reactions instead. We can get rid of shame and guilt just by understanding and taking firm decisions instead of acting. We can start to have a very, very clear view of what we are doing, our targets, our goals, and then we will not have to have those time pressure, because then we can prioritize in a much better way. And the same goes for this, with that you are doing things because someone else is you think that someone else is expecting it. If you always have a clear view of what is the thing that I'm doing now, what is the next step for this? What is this? What will this action? How will that connect to the bigger picture and bigger purpose?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Are you ready to unlock your full potential? I want to introduce you to the Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast, a powerful resource to transform your life today. With expert interviews, practical tips, and inspiring stories, this podcast is your roadmap to lasting wellness. Here's what a listener has to say.
I used to struggle with my health, but this podcast changed everything. It's like having a personal trainer, nutritionist, and life coach totally for free.
With over 2,000 five-star reviews, we're a podcast you can trust. The Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast, available now wherever you get your podcasts.
And Hannah, because we are not just talking about mental health or nervous system. And I mean, look at how all of these are beautifully connected, how they're beautifully communicating with each other. I want to bring in a bit of neuroscience in here, because I think this is where your work, it really gets interesting. So when not only leader, I mean, let's just, consider every one of us, especially because, we are trying to just go through those difficult, challenging moments. Sometimes maybe listening, maybe trying to take in the expectations and maybe quote unquote perform. When we are operating under chronic pressure, what is actually happening in the brain? And how does that start to silently change the way, we make decisions, or we relate to people, we connect, communicate with them?
Mm. What actually happens when we are in in a survival mode, let's keep to that wording just to be a little bit stringent here. But when we are in a survival mode, meaning that we are doing things that are connected to outside pressure, that also means that we are in a stress mode. And when we have a stress inside our body, I mean, our body and our nervous system is beautifully designed for us to survive. Let's not forget that. So when we are in a stress situation, meaning that we should be able to just grab our babies and run without thinking. That is what we are. That is what the brain and the nervous system is wired to do. So when we feel a threat, or when we are in a situation where we have a pressure, higher pressure, our amygdala is going to release cortisol. That is a hormone that is supposed to support us with a higher blood sugar into the prefrontal cortex. Now we are getting into a little bit more details here. But the prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain that supports us with the cognitive thinking. That is the decision-making machine. And the amygdala is the response, the activation response receptor. Let's call it that. So it will send those hormones, the cortisol, up to our prefrontal cortex for us to be able to take those quick decisions. The thing is that when we get that blood sugar to our prefrontal cortex to be able to support us with those decisions, that will also make sure that we are narrowing our focus. Because when we need to run away from our threats, we don't have time to stand and look at the sides of us and say, okay, who else is here? Let's everyone come along. And how would you do in this situation? How would you do? No, we don't have time for that when we are in a threat mode. So we are just running. The same thing happens when we are in that stressed situation, and with this additional cortisol that is pumping to our prefrontal cortex, that we will narrow our focus. It will also, just connecting this to that, we will not have time to stay still and ask for anyone else's opinions and so on. That we will run on old patterns. We will run on old patterns. We will run on old thinking patterns, because it's the nervous system triggering us to do that.
Right.
Just concluding this is that what will happen if we base our decisions on very fast, quick thinking, old pattern thinking, without taking the time for reflection and ask for the other one's opinions and views. As a leader, just take it as a leader. Will your team run with you? They might. As you are the leader, they might just chase you because, hey, my leader is running, so let's run with him or her. Will they understand why you're running or in what direction you are running? Probably not. And again, the leader, the most important thing for the leader is to make sure that the team is utilized, or the team's abilities and skills, experiences, knowledge is used as much as possible. It's the collective thinking that will take the team further.
It's more like a physiological aspect. I mean, uh, probably not a leadership gap or a character flaw, but more like a physiological shift. And I think uh,
Mm.
the clarity here and understanding what is actually happening beneath all of, those reactions or decisions. I think when we understand that, it stops being about blaming maybe the situation or what caused it or who caused it, and then it starts bringing that awareness into you that okay, this is what the situation is, and let's try to think what direction we can go further, what we can do. And I think that
Mm.
brings the clarity, and that clarity it kind of it gets communicated to your team as well, or the people that you're working with.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, and also, yes, coming back to what actually happens in within our nervous system,
Mm.
and when we are in a constant fight or flight mode, survival mode, and with this constantly pumping of cortisol and adrenaline and all those things, that will make sure that your metabolism in your body, you will have headaches, you will have pain in your back, in your body, in different situations, or in different parts of your body as well.
Mm.
And many people, and that is actually including myself as well, I've had a constant pain for let's say more or less 7-8 years.
Mm.
I was in a team then that was not really, it was not really a good mental situation, or it was a dysfunctional team, let's call it by that.
Mm.
And I could feel that in my body. When I shifted from that team to another, then also my pain, I got rid of my pain. So what I want to say with that is that no matter if you're a leader or a team member or whoever you, just as a person, also start to listen to your body.
Mm.
Do I have pain? If I have a pain, when does that pain occur? Do I have it constantly? Is it more tense in different situations than in others, and so on? Because that will also give you a hint of what you need to change.
Mm. And I think if we can, I mean, I know we are short on time, but still, I think if we can kind of, what I feel, what I can realize is that, whether we lead with our nervous system, whether we know it or not, but
Mhm.
I think the question comes to whether we learn its language before,
Mhm.
it speaks loudly enough to stop us. So I think that is
Mhm.
something we all can take away from this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, you can actually save lives. And I mean that when I say that. You can save lives if you start to pay attention to your nervous system and what your nervous system is telling you. So yes, for me that is always the starting point. Whatever you are going to do, to start to kind of, yeah, listen to the signals that you have.
And Hannah, also, if our listeners, I mean, I know there will be people who are listening right now who would want to go deeper with your work as well, and the work that you're doing with BrainShift, or maybe just follow what you are putting out into the world. So how they can know where they can find you.
The easiest way to find me, that's through LinkedIn. I'm active there, and I always open for conversations. So please connect with me on LinkedIn. You can also connect with me through my webpage. That is hannakurman.se. You can also follow my Instagram account, which is BrainShift Leadership, where I share some insights and thoughts about leadership and the connection to the nervous system. So either channel, you're always welcome to get back to me. And yeah, let's take it from there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, you heard it from Hannah, listeners. Yeah, I'll have all the links and details mentioned in the show notes. So find them attached along with this episode on whichever platform you are listening to Healthy Mind, Healthy Life podcast right now. And Hannah, thank you so much, because I know that 30 minutes is not justified enough, because this is such a vast, such a huge topic and huge part of our lives, such a fundamental, crucial part of our lives. But I still really, really appreciate being candid, sharing your experiences, and also help us to at least look at ourselves, our nervous system, our brains, with more compassion and without any judgment.
Thank you very much. And thank you for having me.
And yes, listeners, thank you for listening to Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. If something in this episode, it connected with you, I hope that you let yourself stay with it. Maybe you can journal it down, or maybe you can record it, or you can just maybe stand in front of the mirror and say it out loud. And if this conversation meant something to you, do share it with someone who leads, or someone who has been carrying more than they are saying out loud. We are all somewhere on this journey. And until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of your mind, take care of yourselves. And remember, healing is not a destination, it is a direction. Until next time, this is your host, Sana. I'll catch you in the next episode. Thank you so much.